Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Well, actually, Thanksgiving is not after 2 days since I recorded this video, but either way, happy Thanksgiving. And what do we have every Thanksgiving? We got a Disney movie, an animated Disney movie. And man, I just went to see Strange World, and I was kinda having a little bit of hope with this one because when in terms about of animated movies, theatrical animated movies, mind you, this year wasn't very kind to Disney. Even although I'm mostly talking kind of like in the Pixar way because we only got two Pixar movies that I just saw, and this year it was supposed to be kind of like the big Disney movie that they were expecting to be only for kind of slip a little bit into the shadows, considering that I was kind of anticipating this one. If you remember, I hate a turning red, and Lightyear now is becoming more and more that I'm not liking it. I didn't like Lightyear. I didn't like Turning Red. So I was kind of a little bit crossing my fingers with Strange World because honestly the trailers didn't seem too bad, and for once it felt kind of like imaginative. Okay, Turning Red was kind of imaginative too, but I was not wanting, considering that Disney is wanting to push down kind of like this kind of like agendas into their cartoons. I wasn't exactly kind of like a big fan of both Turning Red and Lightyear. Until I got, of course, kind of news of what was gonna be in Strange World, but that one I was not exactly kind of like brushing that, saying that you know what, it will be what it will be. I just gonna watch it, and lo and behold, what a big, I don't know if this was a big coincidence that we got Bob. Nah, I'm not gonna talk about more politics. I was gonna say about what that recently Bob Iger replaced Bob Chapek again from one Bob to another. You know what? I'm even confusing which one was the Bob I'm talking about. Just hear me rant a little bit, but mostly the biggest gist is that despite the movie not kind of being under marketed, I was still anticipating and really hopeful for Strange World. Finally watch it. It wasn't kind of like a big crowd, and I just came out thinking that this movie was average. I'll say, kind of like average. I like it a little bit better than Lightyear if I had to make kind of like comparisons, but to be kind of like, wow, this was a great Disney movie or something like that, it didn't kind of affected me. And I don't know if this is just me that I kind of grew up and just kind of brush it off, but honestly, I think that any movie that kind of shows and becomes a fodder for Kingdom Hearts, it's kind of like good for me. Yeah, keep on going in with these movies because the more animated movies you get, probably we're gonna get more worlds from Kingdom Hearts. And honestly, this one it could probably be one of those worlds. But I'm not gonna here to talk about how can if this is gonna be a Kingdom Hearts material. I'm just talking about the movie itself, if it is good or not. Maybe it will be depending on how you kind of look for it. This is one of those movies that I don't I don't quite think that it's gonna be bad, but there's some things that kind of make me roll my eyeballs here and there because honestly, how can I say, the best when the movie ended, the biggest thing that came to my mind is that this was an average movie that kind of became a little bit dependent on making a checklist of elements that is gonna be a little bit making an agenda. But considering how the movie goes, I kind of also I just kind of realized late that it's gonna come into benefit that this is gonna be a movie that's gonna be for ourselves. So I'll get to that just in case. So let's talk about what the movie's about. First of all, I do like that. I gotta give it at least that this movie is kind of like these, one of those old movies that they kind of make you want to revive the feeling of exploration and they kind of go with the aesthetics of those adventure comics or adventure films in which it's all about exploration and the how all these people they just go to find new worlds, and this kind of is the biggest impression that you could get in this one. So it kind of follows this kind of like this big explorer named Jaeger Clade, and he also has his son Searcher Clade. And then during one of the explorations, they have a little bit of a fallout because Searcher Clade wants to farm a newly discovered. What was it? I wrote it here. It's some kind of a berry that gives out energy, in which they call it pando. Yes, I wrote it. I wrote some notes here and there. So one rather to make farm berries and be safe, while the Jaeger wants to keep exploring. So they have a fallout. They separate, and then he hasn't been heard for kind of like 26 years later. What was it? 20 years? I wrote it here just in case. Let's see. Jaeger gets alone. Okay, 25 years later. I got it here. Yeah. 25 years later, Searcher now has an interracial family. He with a mother, a son. He got a wife, a son, and a three-leg dog, by the way. And they become famous because they, of course, thanks to his discovery and his farms, they make enough energy to make a utopia. Making a civilization with airships, with electricity here and there. So it's kind of like interesting in that thing. Until, of course, he gets kind of like a call in which the plants are kind of dying for some reason, and so they have to go underground, where they discover this is the source of those energy berries. So they go there. They go to an explored area, and it is kind of like this unexplored area that they go there. It's really strange, like the world is strange, and fate technically has Searcher find his long lost father, Jaeger, and I'll get to that right away. It's kind of like a much to go with it. But basically it's an exploration to go into unfamiliar territory in order to find a way to save their town that is having an energy crisis. That's pretty much the best way I can describe it in small words. But like always, you gotta have it. The character is mostly kind of like the biggest thing that you have to talk about the character. We got first of all, I do like the dynamic that there's kind of like a family of adventurers, but then one of them decide to settle down into a farm, and it kind of brings out a little bit kind of like the conflict of the movie. We got the relationship between Jaeger and Searcher, which is the father and son. Jaeger, he's played by Dennis Quaid, and he's kind of like the adventurer who he just wants to explore, makes a name for himself and everything. But his con is that he's so full of himself that he doesn't necessarily think of the things that he like. For example, I do like that he come up with a moment in which he kind of lost a relationship with his wife, and he just got sucked up into exploring and adventuring, that he just didn't give himself the time to settle down and becomes kind of like a family because he just wants. He just thinks that exploration is kind of like the most important thing in his life. He doesn't want to lose this passion, and if he doesn't explore, then he kind of loses himself, and which is technically the opposite of Searcher, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. He's kind of Searcher Glade is kind of like the main character in this one. He basically was his son, and he wasn't exactly very keen to adventuring, mostly because his father technically pushes him through all this, and so he decided to settle down with this discovery of the century, which is the Pandu, with those berries that can power up even airships. So he decided to settle down and make it, and he doesn't like much adventuring, even though he's still prepared for that, and that also leads him to his relationship with his son Ethan. Ethan is basically the kid who he also wants adventuring, and he's not exactly kind of like very happy with the farming life. He's grateful, but not exactly, how can I say, very open to farming. And well, I could say that he actually has an admiration for his grandfather, that they even erect a statue of him and the others because he created the utopia and all these things. Well, there is also what else I can say? I did wanted to talk about that. There is something good between the relationship between also the father and son, between Ethan and Searcher, because Searcher basically he's trying too hard is to not make his son not like his father, because he doesn't want him to have kind of like an inkling for adventuring, because it'll bring him technically kind of like the memories that he doesn't want from his father and all these things. Okay, other characters that there is also Meridian Clay, who is the mother. She's played by Gabrielle Union. Who another there's Lucy Liu also, who plays kind of like one of Jasper's explorers, who is kind of like a veteran. She's the one who comes out with the problem, and she's the one to drag Searcher to this new expedition. And of course there's the three-legged dog, and because they needed a mascot. And speaking of mascot, there's also kind of like this blob thing called Splat. They call him Splat, which is basically an element of the world that I'll get to it right now. Because if there's a big positive that I can tell about Strange World, also, is that it is a very imaginative world, which I'm kind of glad, considering that in the last movie that we got is Lightyear, and Lightyear was kind of like a prequel or a spin-off to a beloved series that we didn't want it to see any change here and there. And considering that we're having kind of like this kind of like Disney reboots here and there, it's kind of a little bit rolling our eyeball. Oh my god, we got that Little Mermaid teaser again, and I'm not exactly very happy with it. Not because of the biggest elephant in the room, but mostly because it's another bad Disney remake. Oh please! Although this is the biggest thing why I was expecting much about Strange World, because it's an original idea with a creative world, and I really like the kind of like the world that they go. The biggest thing is kind of like it. How can I describe it? Because the more I describe the movie, I will make kind of like the disservice of kind of spoiling it. But I kind of like that it really look otherworldly. The best way I can describe how they look like is that if you remember this video game named Spore, that's how the world and its creatures are. They kind of look like the interior of something, and not an interior of something, kind of like out of this world, and kind of like so alien that you even like the creatures. Again, they kind of look like spore creatures, or in modern terms, kind of like the creature that you might come up from No Man's Sky, I will say. And although this kind of, if I keep talking more, it kind of might be spoiling the twist of what the world is. But in long story short, I will say that I really like the twist that it goes through. I was almost like I never expected something like that, but I should have expected in it. And well, now I gotta go a little bit with the thematics, which this is where I go with a little bit with the elephant in the room. The big theme about this movie is that it's about kind of like the legacies that you are forming and you're leaving behind, and also the biggest heart of the movie is the relationship between father, grandfather, and son that there is. I already said, is that Jaeger and Searcher, they don't kind of exactly agree with each other about their decisions in life, and then of course Searcher have a family, interracial family, mind you, and he doesn't want that his son takes the footsteps of his grandfather, because he doesn't want him to be reminded of, the experience that he doesn't want to. But he doesn't do it kind of like for ill intentions. He just kind of just said that he just wanted to build a kind of like a tranquil life, and not knowing that he is basically, doing the same mistakes that his father is doing unintentionally. And that kind of comes up with it. And the kid is likable, I'll say. And although I find there's a little bit of a disappointment, is that the family sometimes comes up a little bit too nice, and I kind of expected the movie to take deeper risk on family relationship. Like, for example, they could have made the character of Jaeger kind of like an asshole, I'll say. He kind of is, but it's more like a likable asshole, instead of, being kind of like, saying that, sometimes some family members are not worth it, which is something that maybe Disney has explored in some other movies that I struggle to remember. But nowadays they don't want him, saying that everyone that everyone is evil, there's hunky-dory here and there. So, funny thing that the movie kind of says that having something without a villain is boring, and this movie doesn't have a villain. It's kind of like the environment that can be dangerous, which makes it a villain. That kind of makes it a little bit boring. Oh, and speaking of risky explorations, I do want to talk about the biggest elephant in the room, that is something that kind of makes me a little bit question a little bit if this is an okay movement, or they did it right. But it's both kind of like a bold direction, but maybe it wasn't for me. But honestly, when I was kind of like in my way home, I was still thinking about it. I was kind of like pondering if the Disney made this correct move. I'm stretching it out. You know what I wanted to talk to you guys? You know what it is? Here's the thing. And it's not exactly kind of like the biggest thing in the movie, because it's kind of like a secondary thing. But it is in your face. It is in your face, and it's in a way I'm kind of glad that they did, but, whew. Okay, I'm stretching it because I'm kind of stretching it. Okay, here goes. Ethan, the child character. He's openly gay. Yeah, they don't and they don't do it like the familiar traps like they did in previous Disney movies. Like, for example, oh, here's an homosexual thing. Yeah, it just lasted like 3 minutes. Oh, here's an homosexual thing like they did in Lightyear. It's kind of like blink and you miss. No, they didn't do that this time. This time, Ethan, this character, now they showcase that he is in love with this other guy. And they kind of treat it, like, for example, in one of those movies, like, for example, there's this girl I kind of like. And you can tell that the other guy can be with him because he's dressed in pink. And you can tell that he's also gay. So, people are... I saw kind of like in YouTube that they kind of praise him for making him kind of like the first Disney openly gay Disney character. This is something that they've been kind of like hammering on other characters, even though they kind of go with it. So he's not exactly. I will say that is probably the first one that actually they put center on it. And it's finally shown in your face, and it kind of shows an element. Not exactly kind of like the main element, but but it's very open. And I have a family member who picked me up, and I was like questioning me, like saying that, is it gonna be alright for children to watch this? And then we were kind of like going into the conversation, and we kind of agreed that, yeah, now everyone is being open-minded to it because, well, study says that sexuality can be naturally happen during when you're 8 years old. So, although I do agree that there is a sense that you have to teach children about to be proud of your sexuality, of what you are, and all these things. Considering Disney's track record, I was looking at those and I was like, something like that. And while I was pondering, you know what I'm thinking? I am thinking that this movie will be China-proof because you know that they have kind of like different culture that they don't accept homosexuality, and I was thinking that wow, that this movie is not gonna pass the the Chinese censors. Good for them. Good for them. Oh my God, I spent kind of like a lot of minutes talking about this. About sexuality when the biggest thing that I should be talking about this movie about the sense of adventuring that it has, and because it does what it delivers, a sense of adventure, a family adventure, and well, it's not exactly kind of like wow bombastic here and there, but you're gonna get kind of like an enjoyment out of it if you kind of take out a little bit the elephant in the room and just enjoy what it is. Oh, you know what? Continuing what it is, I just want to tell you that I'm for a movie that is kind of inspired in kind of like in this 20s or 30s style of adventure sci-fi adventuring movies or comic books that they just go out. I am kind of like surprised that everybody is really open-minded to the kids' homosexuality about being gay, and it's like, hey, you know what? That's cool. You're gonna like him here and there. Everybody's really open-minded about it. Disney, please. You know, I was thinking that probably that could be kind of like if you could make Turning Red a little bit better, in which you explore not only the homosexual, sexuality of how your hormones work here and there. I know it sounds uncomfortable, but let's try it out with how homosexuality works. Putting the pieces together about why people fall in love. They made movies or even training videos about why people fall in love between the two sexes, but nobody made a video about it, about why you fall in love with the same gender, all of it. That could work. Why I'm thinking that when I'm supposed to be thinking about Strange World? Strange World should be about the adventuring, not about me questioning about two character sexuality. Oh my god! You know what? I'll leave it to you on your own opinion, because this is gonna be kind of like the biggest elephant in the room that many people are gonna talk about. And considering that, but you know what? Maybe this conversation kind of made the movie worth it, considering that the whole other experience was just kind of like average. Average Disney adventuring movie with actually it has a good twist. I'll say it has a good twist about the Strange World, and I really like the dynamic between those characters. I like the sense of adventuring. Although, I just feel like it could need a little bit more of the adventuring side. Oh, there is one thing also, and it's shown in the trailers, but let me tell you, this movie has actually a body count of one person. There is one guy who died, and we never see him again. If there's a post-credit scene and to see this guy surviving, let me know, because I couldn't sit during the whole movie, because I doubt that this movie had a post-credit scene, because honestly, during the whole movie I was like, one guy died. We never see him again. What happened to this guy? So that's another thing that kind of bothered me during the whole movie. And speaking of which, I think that's the biggest problem that this movie had, is that the movie felt a little bit safe, except for one guy that apparently died. And there is no sense of danger. And if you wanted to make kind of like those, these adventure sci-fi movies and all these things, you know that these movies also had a body count. People die in these kind of adventures. So maybe you could kill off kind of like more characters, then you could have kind of like the sense of danger. And that could also heightens the sense of that adventure. Well, it may be exciting, but at the same time, exploration, it also comes up with risk. That's probably, I will say, why this come up kind of like a little bit average to me. That the stakes were high, but it wasn't high enough. At least on how it shows. This is the problem sometimes when you make cartoons, that when you want to appeal to a younger audience, sometimes you don't want to make the adventure too risky, or else, how can I say, you might kind of like scare off the younger demographic. And honestly, entertainers are kind of like don't want to do that, because they're afraid that parent will kind of like being angry with it. I'm still very curious to see what parents will say about the open homosexual relationship. God damn it, why it comes back to this. Did you see what I mean when this movie was a little bit that I kind of describe it like an average adventure movie with a checklist of things that they just wanted to do. What is on the checklist? Interracial relationships, homosexuality, disability. I do see disability considering that there is a dog with 3 legs, and the only thing that I was missing is feminism. So, but despite what I said, it's not woke. This movie is not woke, but you can. But sometimes I want to kind of like edge a little bit clear out of it. But luckily, this thing doesn't. You know the term go woke, go broke. It doesn't go. Luckily, it doesn't go that way. Maybe the homosexual thing is gonna bypass through me after a few couple of tries because this is not an easy thing to do. But in a way, I'm kind of glad that they did. The only thing, except that I think that it kind of brushed up a little bit for me, kind of like to care. If only Disney could make it kind of like make it like the centerpiece. Although this one, it comes close to that. Yeah, I'm talking about it again. Okay, let's wrap this up. Do I recommend this movie? Well, maybe as a rental, I'll say. Maybe as a rental movie, you're gonna get something that is gonna be worth your time, but it's not exactly kind of like a wow factor. The only wow factor you're gonna get is kind of like the beautiful scenery, the beautiful how good it looks. The creature looks awesome. I really love the creatures. And a little bit of cynicalism as a gay relationship. Wow. But anyway, but either way, without exploration, at least I'll give this. Without a sense of exploration, you wouldn't get anywhere. And I like that this movie is. I like that the movie goes kind of like encourage people to explore and explore. Don't be afraid, of kind of like the trying out new experiences because, well, sometimes being stuck in there is not exactly fulfilling, and sometimes when you have the feel to go out and see the world, and it also kind of says that, well, it's also okay if you want to just settle and and bring something kind of like productive because each on its own has their own way to fulfill their own legacy, whether doing kind of like adventurous thing or settle down with a farm for crops and everything. And so that's pretty much I have to say about Strange World. It was indeed strange, but the biggest strange thing that I got is my feelings to the elephant in the room that this movie had. God, this movie is really bringing me the strangest opinion based thoughts that I have ever said.